Hi, Stephen. Welcome
Hey,
to Automate All the Things.
it's good to be here.
How does it feel to actually be on camera and not just be the person feeding me the automations?
I mean, I'd say it's intimidating, but it's really not. It's good here. It's good to give back to the community that we're both a part of, and
Yeah.
through this your encouragement, you got me here. So
All right. Well, speaking of community and intimidation, hi, everyone. Let us know in the chat if you're here. Give us a little thumbs up. Make Stephen feel welcome. And you're amongst peers here. You're amongst other automators, folks just like yourself and I. So I think I'm sure a lot of folks know who you are, not just because you've given so much to this community in maybe not content wise, but just giving us tips and tricks. So maybe a quick intro into yourself would be a good start.
yeah. Well, my name's Stephen O'Grady. I'm a product manager at a up and coming tech startup. In fashion and design, which is a whole other bag of tricks. In my spare time, I tinker. I try to make sense of things, the way they work and the way they should work, which is really the way I want them to work. And a couple of years ago, I think it's a couple of years ago at this point, Aaron, I stumbled on one of your YouTube videos, and at the time, we had just started getting podcast delivery up and running. For those who don't know, podcast delivery is a email newsletter that we've got running. So once a week, you get a fresh podcast recommendation in your inbox, and that's it. It's simple. But I wanted to use it as a bit of a vehicle to learn more, and that's when I really got entrenched in this no code kind of community. I found your referral program, and then we were off to the races. With that, I got a pretty sweet referral program up and running, and a solid friendship with you.
Yeah, I so Steve, so some background. So just hi, we've got Penny in the chat. Veronica, good to see you. I think you've worked with Veronica as well, so good to have that come full circle. Colleen, as usual. So let us know in the chat. Say hi. Always good to see folks join. Uh, yeah, so we're not going to spend a ton of time here on this, but we did meet. You are probably the first person who ever implemented one of what I thought was the stupid stuff I put on the web. And I was actually shocked that anyone watched, like, hey, Damiano, a long time no see. Like, it was like a 4 hour stream, I think. And, I would actually argue that I probably wouldn't have continued because no one would ever show up to the streams. But just to know that someone actually implemented it and use it was, enough to have me continue. But that's neither here nor there. So really appreciate that. Uh, Talk a little bit about what like maybe in the context of podcast Larry, talk a little bit about what we're going to show folks how to build today.
So I guess the short version of this is podcast delivery stack is predominantly no code. So there's a lot of pieces that you can fit together if you sort of put in the legwork. Our stack for the newsletter is primarily Mailchimp, and then through Airtable and some bits of Zapier, I'm able to piece things together for that referral program. In the last 6 months or so, I started getting more involved in the actual content creation of that newsletter. So I'm listening to those podcasts a lot more, and I'm trying to craft some sort of piece that I can deliver to people again once a week. Despite it being a once a week thing, it is kind of time consuming, and you got to put that content through its paces. And I found that it was a little challenging to get into Mailchimp day in and day out, or sort of on the fly. Um, with that, I knew that Airtable was going to be the place that I wanted to manage all of that content, and at the very least start curating it before getting it out there. And I just sort of I was strong-willed about it, and I wanted to keep everything in Airtable, get it into Mailchimp only when it was necessary, and use Integromat to get that done. So what we're going to try to get up and running today is a system that has all of your content curated, created, maintained in Airtable. And like I said earlier, here comes my dog. Sorry about that. And
That's okay.
then the Airtable base is that source of truth that then that allows us to pump all of that information into Mailchimp. And in this case, we're going to use Airtable. Sorry, we're going to use Integromat. I think it's pretty easy to swap that up for any other iPaaS solution too.
Yeah. So essentially your whole newsletter, so everything you send, so if you go to like podcast delivery and go see the last episode, everything is drafted and managed in Airtable, and then at a click of a button it's sent to Mailchimp, and with the option of just delivering the newsletter. So you actually don't spend time in Mailchimp, you only spend time in Airtable and then send it over to Mailchimp. Is that kind of right?
Yeah,
Cool.
and it's been a pretty exciting change. I mean, something as small as that can often be overlooked, but to have everything in a single frame of reference, in this case Airtable, makes my life a lot easier.
Yeah, and I wonder maybe what about it. So we're gonna jump in here because I'm like itching to actually do this automation. So there's some. I guess Mailchimp is such an ubiquitous tool. I wonder what is the value to you of drafting that content in Airtable instead of Mailchimp.
Mailchimp's interface has changed a little bit recently, and I think that they're realizing they can play in different spaces and still take some market share from maybe a Squarespace or something like that. So the evolving interface just became a little too much for me, and I love the consistency. If I think about it now, I'd say 95% of this newsletter is powered by Airtable, and we're talking the referral program. We're talking the actual content creation now, and it's the glue that keeps things going.
Yeah. So I would actually add, we've been toying with the idea of how do we do more of this, and I think a big one is you can actually edit and have multiple people kind of validate information in Airtable, right? So you can imagine like a newsletter with multiple hands on it, where every section needs to be validated. That's actually hard to do from within Mailchimp, and Airtable makes that, I think, much easier. So an example of what we could imagine expanding beyond this is, you have 8 sections. Every section has different parts and need to be validated. You can have that status in Airtable saying like, okay, this has been validated, and then when all of your content is validated, that's when you unlock the ability to send it to Mailchimp. Another part is that you can have dynamic inserts, right? So we're probably not going to cover this today, but I know that something you're thinking about is that you might have an ad network, which, is in Airtable, right? So you're kind of like, people are trying to slot different ads into your newsletter. That becomes complicated. So this is actually a workflow that makes it possible to be able to insert an ad dynamically, in the sense of like, we're going to take this advertiser for this newsletter and track that through time. So it is like, I think we're starting from a hobbyist perspective. Like, you just wanted a single place to handle all of your information, but I think there's a lot that can scale from it. So that's why I'm excited to kind of put it out into the world and see what people build. So some folks are already talking about like how to generate dynamic images, which you can do in Airtable, and then insert those into the image. We will be using images today as an example. So the images will live in Airtable and then be sent to Mailchimp. If I'm not mistaken, I'm seeing your face. We are going to do that. Right?
Yeah, we're going to do that. In fact, if I got a trick up my sleeve, up my sleeve, and,
all right,
and we'll be able to demo that today.
All right, it's freezing here, so I'm sorry. I'm like both nervous and cold. But okay, so let's do this. We're gonna jump in. We'll jump into the base. We're gonna do an overview of what we're gonna cover. Apologies, I have to like set this up here, and every week I forget how. So boom, you should be good to go. Now you should see the screen. I'm gonna close this. There we go. All right. So folks should see the checklist. Right. I'm excited. Okay, so our checklist today, first, we're going to assume we're starting from nothing, right? So we're actually going to create a very simple email in Mailchimp, right? So imagine like this might be your current template or whatever it is. And then we're going to kind of extract the HTML, which then we're going to kind of insert the information from Airtable into that kind of HTML template. Right. And that's what we're going to then send to Integromat, to Mailchimp, to say, hey, here's this week's newsletter. Go ahead and send it off. So that's going to be kind of our structure for today. One second, I've got to set this up properly. Whoop. There we go. Can y'all still see my screen? Should be good to go. Yeah, I think y'all can see my screen here. Okay. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. All right, cool. Okay, so Steven, where do we start? Talk to me. Where are we going? So we're starting in Mailchimp.
I'd say start in Mailchimp.
Cool.
And I I don't know about you. I always thought HTML was a little more challenging than it needed to be, and because of that, I kept it away. And I'm sure there are some people out there that are in the same boat.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, this is just a quick and easy way to wrap your head around HTML. So if you're unfamiliar with it, don't hesitate. And the starting point here is definitely going to be jumping into Mailchimp and then finding one of the templates that they offer out of the box, just to make our lives a little bit easier here.
Okay, so I'm going to create an email. So I'm going to create an email like that. Let's call this, AATT number 35. It's kind of weird writing that. That's a lot of streams I've been on. So templates. Boom. All right. So should I go create template or?
Yeah. So there are many different ways, and I think we're kind of proving out one of the challenges I mentioned earlier. Mailchimp's interface is changing quite a bit. If you click on the create button, the little teal create button on the left nav bar there.
Yeah.
So it'll open up that modal one more time, and then click email template. And the reason why I prefer this one is because it's a one and done thing. You don't have to have this lingering campaign that you haven't finished. Try the layouts tab. And then you can already get a feel for how simple and basic it is. I like the one on the far left, whichever you prefer.
This one right here?
Yeah. And the reason why this is worth having as a starting point is because there might be some images that you actually want to have remain static. You don't want to have them dynamically replaced by the content that you have in Airtable. So we can go ahead and try that. But at the end of the day, once you tweak and use their template builder to get it to a point where you want to use it, you can export that.
Okay, so do we want to? Just so folks, we're assuming we're starting a new newsletter. We're going to create like a format that we want. We're going to say like, okay, we always put our logo at the top. There's going to be an image that might be dynamic. That we're going to then have to like put in Airtable. So as we're building this, or as folks are building this, on their own time, or for their own newsletter, they start thinking of like, okay, this I want static, this I want dynamic, right? And we're going to like create our newsletter here together, right? So tell me, how do you want this newsletter to look?
So let's replace that logo. I mean, that's the starting point, and it works for the industry standard here. If you've got an image that you're willing to throw in there, by all means, go for it.
You want me to do that? You want me to add an image?
If you'd like, yeah.
Let me see. Let me see where I can find my AATT stuff.
I love that you were using Alfred from.
I got bullied into it. I got bullied. I can't. I have a weekly stream, and Chris is gonna see a stream, and if I don't have Alfred up, I feel like people are gonna get angry, and so. But it's been great. It's been great. So, okay, I got my logo. I can't. Oh, I gotta.
You gotta click replace.
Replace.
And then once this loads up, you can throw it in there. So again, I mean, I kind of sound like a broken record at this point, but the interface can use a little bit of love here.
That's okay.
And to stay out of it, I think is a luxury that we can all benefit from.
Okay, so should I remove this showcase your product? Whoop.
Let's delete that header just so that we can keep it clean. And from here, delete one of those rows as well. Those columns, I should say. So go to settings. Yeah, just make it a 1. 1 left align.
There we go.
And you can kind of get a feel for, the format of this newsletter. And it's an out-of-the-box standard for a reason. You might want to feature a product or something different products, different weeks, or different editions of your newsletter. And this is one way that we can show that off.
So I promise to folks who are new to the stream, this is not like learn Mailchimp 101, right? Like we're not going to like walk through software. We're just trying to get to a template that we're going to extract the HTML and then actually like dynamically insert values into that. So we're just trying to get to something that like kind of makes sense just so we can get the HTML. But what you can do actually like on your like is actually have a beautiful HTML template. So you don't have to actually use this builder. So do we want to edit anything else here?
Just keep the structure of it in mind. That's the only tip I'd give here.
Cool.
There's obviously a paragraph in the middle. There's some bells and whistles at the bottom. There's a main call to action there in blue. All of that theoretically can be made dynamic if we want it to be.
Okay, cool. So how do I get the HTML of this? And
Let's
why do
save and close before we click anywhere else on the bottom?
Save and close, right? Very important. 2005. Got to save things.
Click on, where'd it go? Style. I think it's the. Oh no, that's not right. Block.
What are we looking for? Code?
Just the raw HTML. That would be inserting it. Maybe. Oh,
can I just inspect this or no?
Yeah, that's a way to do it. Yeah, I think Colleen's right. It might have been lower right and save, and then from there you might have the option. But
let's go check it out. Save and exit.
Yeah.
Okay, this is AATT number 35.
Yeah, I've done this a handful of times, and it seems new every time I try.
I gotta say, coming to a stream and doing it, like explaining it to people and doing it yourself, is like two worlds.
Absolutely.
People who haven't been on the stream don't know that. Export as
there
HTML.
Yeah.
Export template. Okay, let's open. I'm gonna open this up in. I've got VS Code here. So let me open that up. Right here. Okay. Or do you prefer I actually open it up here? What do you think? Like here?
Whichever. I think this might get some of that across. So if you copy and paste that content in VS Code.
So folks, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. This is just a way that previews HTML. Right? So where's the run?
That's it.
Whoa. Okay, so this renders the HTML that we input. So this is going to give us like a live preview of our newsletter. And so we're kind of essentially, if I'm understanding you right here, Stephen, we're going to like try to take each piece of this newsletter and turn it into Airtable fields. And then we're going to kind of try to insert into the HTML each of those Airtable values in the record to dynamically generate this newsletter.
Nail on the head. Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome.
I love that you're getting served Mailchimp ads already.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been on the platform since 2016. Like they lost a user.
I know you're back.
I'm back. Cool. So next episode, you have study your HTML. So what do you mean by that?
So this is just a really easy way to compare, what you see on the left, which is the raw HTML, and then what it ends up becoming when it is visualized in a browser or in an email. So if you slowly scroll on the left-hand side, you'll start to see areas that match up with what you see on the right, specifically text. A good idea, and I don't know if you can do it in browser here, but if you search for image tags, which is going to be...
yeah, I got it.
There you go. You can start to see the source of those images, and that's src, and everything in those quotations is actually what we're going to be able to swap out dynamically.
Right.
So
this right here.
That's
what if we open that link?
Yeah, let's do that.
So we're just seeing what this is. So that's my logo. So we here in the code, we're saying, okay, this maps to this at the top, right? And we can kind of continue. So this is actually what Mailchimp kind of is not famous for, but what they pioneered is actually making this like a no code abstraction. So when you create an HTML in Mailchimp, it generates this HTML, and people before Mailchimp had to like code this HTML. So like I always say, like Mailchimp is like the OG no code tool, right? Because it actually avoided people having to write these types of HTML stuff.
Do you remember using Dreamweaver?
Yeah, I
Does
do
anyone
actually remember.
Like
I remember using.
That's where I first cut my teeth on HTML, and then I stopped.
Cool. And then like continuing down, we've got like here feature blah blah blah, which maps to this,
And
which
it's
is going to
got
be a
the-
field, right? In Airtable. So we're going to like eventually put everything between this H3 as like a title. So we're going to have a title field. So we're going to start taking this newsletter and turning it into an Airtable record with each item we want to make dynamic into a field, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds fun, huh?
I mean, to some people, and all of those people are on the stream. So, you know, it's very niche. It's very niche, but everyone's
For
here.
now.
So,
I mean, I'm hoping this changes the way that I like that point you made earlier, where you can have, you know, a distributed team potentially collaborate, and then instead of, you know, 3 different sources piling into 3 different newsletters, you can have a consolidated newsletter. Someone
Right.
can be responsible for, you know, that consistent tone. Someone can be responsible for the nitty gritty detail, and yeah, I mean, this is ideally making people's lives easier.
ideally, in the ideal. Until then, we're just having fun. So, okay, so we understand our HTML and like we're starting to map. So how do we actually go about like what is the next step here? So you said make sense of Mailchimp's campaigns and their required fields. Tell me about that.
So in order to send a campaign out, it has to have a title to it, and that's a subject line to it, and a preview text to it. That's just a good practice when you're sending newsletters. You want to be able to, you know, A, be noticeable, and then B, flow to the top of someone's inbox, as opposed to maybe being caught in a promotions tab or something like that.
So I just did create an email. So now we're kind of going through everything that's required, right? So let's say this is AATT. So this would be a title. This is something we also need in Airtable, right?
Yes, the campaign name, exactly.
And then we're, in this case, okay, here we go. So who do you send it to, right?
And
so I've got this audience called subs. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. That's always going to be handled out of out of Mailchimp. You don't
Right.
really have to be too concerned about that.
From, which is who is the sender. In our case, it would be my email. What the subject line is. And then the content is what we're going to dynamically fill using HTML. So those are the kind of 4 big pieces. So in addition to everything we want to make dynamic in this, so this image is going to be a field, this title, this text, call to action, URL, image again, title. We also need like, we're going to call it, I'm going ahead here. Okay. Right. Who's it from, what the subject is, and the content is what I just said. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it. So if you've never been in Mailchimp before, if email is new to you, email newsletters are new to you, give that a quick pass. Take a look at it, understand what's necessary and required, and then know that you absolutely need a corresponding Airtable field for that.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to ask people, do we want to set up the base from scratch? Or do we want to use the base you've prepared? So I guess to set up the question to everyone otherwise, do you prefer spending more time in Integromat or in Airtable? So we've already got like the base set up for what we just generated, but I'm happy to spend 10, 15 minutes like recreating from scratch if you all are interested. So let me know in the chat, maybe like a thumbs up for Airtable and a thumbs down for creating the whole base from scratch. What do you prefer, Stephen?
Wow. I mean, we can start from scratch. We might be here until the sun goes down, potentially.
Really, you think?
Not, I mean, you know, I'm being a little dramatic with it, but it's something if you're detail oriented and you're willing to put in that time, it can take some time. We'll
Okay,
obviously
well,
keep it simple, but
okay, let's do this one then. Let me, in that case, I take it back. It's not a democracy. I I was like, I did a referendum, and I don't care about the results. Let me walk through the base. So folks, okay, so I'll do an in
Built from
between.
scratch. Yeah, let's do in
People
between.
are let's do in between. I apologize for that. Let me walk through the base, and as I'm walking through, I will map each one to its corresponding place.
Yeah.
And then if anyone has any questions, we'll go there, because I do want to spend this Integromat scenario will be a little bit not complicated, but it's a little bit, it's got teeth, as you would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of walk us through these fields here.
So the reason why I said grow familiar with Mailchimp and the required fields is because, I mean, you see it right there. The subject line is something that you absolutely need. That's
Right.
obviously a short, condensed, string of text that you want to make sure is catchy. So you're not going to be writing a paragraph. It's a single line. The same goes for preview text, and that's the little slightly grayer part of that email that only shows up when it's in your inbox.
Right.
I think if you open up subject.
Yeah,
There
here
it
we
is.
go. Subject, preview text. So some folks are talking about the button field. So we're definitely going to talk a lot about button in just a moment. So that's a really good point. Okay, so actually I'm going to share this base with everyone, so you can kind of give it a look. We're going to go through everything. But keep that. So for folks trying to redo this, and you could probably do this with a few tools as well. So, okay, so subject, preview, header image.
So, I mean, this is straightforward. It's one of the first fields that I had a lot of fun with Airtable. I just never got it out of Airtable, and here's a chance to do that. You can easily upload your field, your image, but the important thing is the field next to it, which is a formula that extracts the source information, the source URL specifically, so that you have that available for later.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah,
if that's okay.
It's worth talking about. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there was a question from Albert, I think Albert, around, okay, how do you include images, and so if you go into the HTML, you see that if I go to the source tag, if you want to make an image dynamic in HTML, it takes the source and renders what's in this URL, right? So it has to be hosted somewhere. Now, luckily with Airtable, when you upload an image, Airtable hosts it for you. But you can't say host this image in the attachment field, right? It needs to be a URL. Now, so what the logic of it, or the instinct, I would say a lot of folks would have, which is totally normal, would be to say, okay, well, let me get the image URL, and I'm going to, have a formula field that just says, okay, well, give me the header image. Now, if you create that, it's almost what we want, right? It actually gives you the title, and then it gives you the URL. So ideally, what we want is a field with only the URL. That way, when we send it into the template, we're just saying okay, the source is equal to this URL, right? And you've actually already, using the kind of regex extract that says okay, take everything to the right of HTTP to the end of the string, which then gives you that URL. So genius. Nice one. Nicely done. I'm impressed that you're already using regex, which is a new functionality.
I'll be honest, it wasn't until I decided to dive into this that I knew enough about it.
You wanted to impress everyone.
A little bit, but the regular expressions, I didn't actually know that that's what it stood for at the end of the day. And if you see the pattern, and it is a consistent pattern, you can use something like this to be very specific with any value or anything in that field.
Yeah. If you don't want to learn regular expression, which is I don't. Stack Overflow is your friend, and just
That's
be
it.
like, how to get the rest of a string.
I mean, that instinct that you said people would have is exactly what I did. I was like, great, I'll just take the URL
Right.
and work with it.
Right.
And it took a few more Google searches to get that right.
Okay, and then like continuing along, actually, when we think about it, like every other field is just like parts of the newsletter, right? So first paragraph is going to map to, this potentially, or title. Like, is there anything here that is kind of peculiar? Maybe URL is worth talking about, and campaign ID and things like that.
Well, so that's one of the tricks I said I had up my sleeve, and we can talk about that a little bit more later. That actually is something that we would want to have come back to Airtable. Right.
Good.
We'll show that off with Integromat, but URLs, and that's actually straightforward too. The only trick I would recommend here is don't format it as a URL in Airtable. Keep it as a generic single line. And that way you're not having to unformat it or adjust on the fly in Integromat.
Got it. Okay, cool. Oh, because we're gonna have to change the formatting and the fact that it's a URL. Okay, got it. So I mean,
no big concerns elsewhere. The campaign name on the far left, and we'll have to pass over everyone's favorite, the buttons, as we get.
We'll get there.
That's also a formula too. So what I've set up is just a way to create a little bit of consistency. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. Every time a new record appears in this base, it'll be given a newsletter edition number, and all of that information, as well as the date that we assigned in Airtable, will be pulled in to give you a plain English take on what that edition's all about. And then you use that as a plain text string, through Integromat and into Mailchimp after the fact.
Okay.
So
yeah, got it. So
time saving within time saving. It's
exactly. So you're essentially just using existing values to create the campaign name, so we can just pass that along. So for folks kind of thinking of like, okay, how do I apply this? If you have Mailchimp, and frankly, I think most providers will take input as an HTML for their design. Yeah. Just think of like, okay, this is going to be dynamic in my newsletter, right? So for instance, we're going to say, this title is going to be dynamic. Therefore, I need a field that specifies what that title is. This text is going to be dynamic. I need a field. The title of the button is going to be dynamic. You need a title button. The what you click on is going to be dynamic.
Behind it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So piece that together, and then once you understand how to do that, you can make everything dynamic, right? So the expansion on it really becomes easy. So you can imagine like, okay, I need approval for this particular piece. So you can have a status field for that subset of your newsletter, right? So what we're going to show you is like, okay, we're going to take these fields that we already have, insert them dynamically into the HTML, send that to Mailchimp so that our campaign is created in Airtable.
Yeah. And I mean, a quick note on the status, that's there to keep things organized as well. Right. Not super critical for the campaigns themselves, but over the course of building it, I realized that, there are ways to tweak things to be even more effective and a little more straightforward. And that's what really continues to drive my attention to Airtable as the place for this newsletter that we're running.
Cool. So we're going to skip the 2 button fields and we're going to get them because I want to create some tension in the stream. Right, that's what people came here for. I don't want to sell it short. So we now need. My understanding is we now need something between Mailchimp and Airtable to actually dynamically insert. So what are we going to use for that?
We're going to use Integromat. It's just like Zapier, just like Parabola, but it's a little different. We can pull that up. I mean, that's the way they sell themselves. Right?
Okay.
Every solution sells themselves. Does anyone need to get into the weeds on some of those fields? I think we sort of built it from scratch by going over it field by field, but I think we're ready to jump into this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like in the chat, let us know if anything was unclear, and I'll come back to it. So this is what we're going to build. So without jumping into this whole thing piece by piece, tell me what Integromat does. Like at a high level, what are we going to build now?
So, I mean, Integromat relays information from one place to the next, and then in some cases to the one after that, and the one after that, and so on and so forth. They do, they obviously visualize what they do a little bit differently than what we might be used to. Zapier has the same concepts in play here. I like Integromat because it gets a little more granular and you can actually adjust some of the values in flight. So in between, you know, your origin, which in this case is going to be Airtable through a webhook, and your final destination, you can, you know, make changes to the data that's being passed from one place to the next. The HTML component here, the purple little bubble, is a good example of that. And that's just a formatter to make sure that we don't have poorly formatted content in our newsletter and then sent to the people who are subscribed.
So I will be honest, I am not a big Integromat user, and I think it'll become clear over the next 20 minutes as to why, because there's a simplicity to Zapier, which I really enjoy. And I will say that I say this as someone who isn't deeply in Integromat. So I'm sure as someone, if I spent more time in it, I would fall in love with it. Like a lot of, you know, folks like yourself and Jack and others. So I think for me, what is really special about Integromat is that they actually have a lot of the functionality that people want. They have error handling, routers. They have, you know, if, and then you can merge back that information. So we won't be doing any of that, but for folks who are like, hey, I want to kind of go deeper into this automation thing, Integromat is a very strong tool. But in this automation, we're going to pull information from Airtable, send it to Mailchimp, and then send it back to Airtable to update to say that it's worked. So we're actually going to start this one from scratch. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to create a new scenario, and we'll share this one out as well. So for folks, see, it's always stuff like this that I just want the, right?
That's kind of like the, I don't know, the pre-boarding checklist. Tell us what you want to have in your scenario.
Okay. So how are we going to pull in information into Integromat? So like our first step, like what is going to trigger this automation?
We're going to set up a webhook.
My favorite.
I know. Everyone on the stream's familiar with webhooks, if only for you. I mean, you've been the biggest proponent, the biggest advocate for webhooks that I know. Anyway,
huge fan of webhooks. Every time we should have like a webhook React G or something.
There's like when one of us says it.
Yeah, people like. I just want people like spam in the chat like webhook emoji. I don't know. Okay, whatever. We're gonna use a webhook. So explain what a webhook is for folks who is their first time on the stream.
So I know what it is. I know what it does. I have a hard time explaining it because some webhooks do things opposite from others. In this instance, what we're going to do is Colleen knows all about webhooks because of the stream. So it's a means of consuming anything that hits that endpoint, that hits that destination, and anything is actually part of the URL. So when we set up a webhook here, it'll be there to consume the response that occurs when you open up that webhook in a browser, for instance. And we'll actually kind of augment that a little bit by adding some of the URL parameters and strings some of the URL parameters to it, so that you can pass the information from Airtable into that URL and ultimately be consumed by that webhook, which is a starting point for us.
Yeah, so webhooks are just a way to share almost like structured but not expected information, right? So anyone could ping, the way we structured, like anyone could just be like, hey, I want to send this information to this URL. And then when that URL receives it, they're like, oh, okay, I have this information. I'm going to go ahead and run the rest of this scenario, right? And I am actually not that familiar with webhooks in Integromat. So they actually like let you have a body response, it seems like. That's... should I just go okay, or do we want to set up like a proper body response?
So I saw 3 options up there. When you set this one up, you might have to delete this and then try to set it up again. Yeah.
See, this is what happens when I'm not that familiar.
So custom webhook, just the top one.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry. I want to create a new webhook,
Yeah.
right?
So in this case, we'll have to create that new webhook. It's dead simple. Name it something that you'll remember, and I know you've been working on that.
Oh, it's cool. It's got an IP restriction. That's cool.
And if you want, yeah, you can put in those restrictions as well.
Cool.
So with that set up, you'll see that little string right there. And you'll also see that little spinner stop. You can click that for now because we're going to have to, do some formatting.
Do we want to just show folks? Do we want to first just show folks just this part where let's just send some random data to the webhook, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I've got the webhook here and I'm just going to say data equal test, right? So this is sending like a dictionary almost, but like data is going to be set to test, right? Exactly. So if I run that, it says accepted. If I come here, right? So it says like it's successfully determined. So it's actually received that data, right? And if I do run once, will I be able to see? Oh, it's like waiting for me to run.
Yeah.
Let's do that again. There we go. If I go back
it
here,
might be too fast. Yeah.
No, there we go. Right. So it received. They call it bundles. So it's received like, okay, data is equal to test. You could use that in future steps, right?
Exactly. And you're kind of training, and it's a little bit of a generous word here, but you're telling the webhook what to expect and how to and what the format of what you're sending is.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that they had like, okay, so I'm gonna redetermine data structure, right? Because we're gonna send different data structure in a moment.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Okay. Do we want to build anything else, or do we want to train this webhook first? What do you think?
I think we should train the webhook, and then we'll, for better or for worse, I know there's some webhook fans here, we'll probably move on and not context switch back and forth because it'll be set up to consume anything out of Airtable.
Perfect. You know what I love is that usually when we talk about webhooks, we then talk about buttons. So, and those are my two favorite.
That's the logical way. Yeah, I know.
There we go. Okay, so now we're going to get to the button. So Albert's going to be excited. Okay, cool. So essentially what we're saying is that we want to send information to this webhook about the newsletter we want to schedule.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, cool. How do we do that?
I've had 2 or 3 different setups like this, and I found that you can go all out and include a lot of different fields in the URL. And there are benefits to doing that. I think for this, we can simply add one very important field, and it's probably the first field I create whenever starting a new base. It's the record ID field.
Right.
So
this one right here.
Exactly.
Right. So this is just a formula that has the record ID. So we're going to send that to the webhook, allowing it to then find the record and the rest of the information.
Exactly. So the instant we send that record ID, which is always available, you just need to create that field to surface it this way.
Right.
Then you'll be able to subsequently tell anything in Integromat, if you have anything with this record ID, pull all of the information, everything in that record in that row into this scenario. Okay.
So we're going to change this one because we just regenerated another. So let me actually just build this from scratch, right? So we're creating a button field. That's called schedule. That's, it's going to open a URL. That URL is going to be the webhook, right? So I'm going to paste the webhook. And then what I want, remember we did data equal test. We're probably going to do now record ID equal the variable of record ID. So then Integromat can then find the record, right?
That's it.
I had to take it from you because this is my favorite part. So
I've got plenty more to keep me busy.
All right. I'm trying to keep a streak where we do webhook plus button for like 10 streams in a row. Oops, nope. I want record ID. There we go.
Does that usually? I think we need 2 more quotation marks.
Where?
At the end
here.
Of that.
No, are you sure?
Oh, I think we're good. I've always. Oh, let's see.
Damn. So if I write this, so accepted.
You did it.
Well, we'll see. So I got to run once. Listen for new.
Okay.
Okay. It's got it. Okay, so I got the record ID. Boom.
There it is.
Okay, so now that it has the record ID, what's like the next step here? Remember that we're trying to take the information from Airtable, send it to Mailchimp.
I mean, simply put, you use it, and you use it for what you want. Anything at this point is possible. We'll keep it on the straight and narrow, but you kind of just want to reference
Anything is possible.
anything.
We can do whatever we want.
I mean, if anyone wants to throw a wild idea in there, if you kind of grasp the concept and the basics of where we're going, we can call an audible. But the next thing we want to do is actually just pull everything associated with that record ID out of Airtable and into Integromat to use it.
Cool. So I'm gonna take that record ID and try to find that record in Airtable.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So we're gonna go to Airtable here. We're gonna search record. My Airtable. I'm gonna go to automate live stream number 35. That's the base. That's a table.
Yeah.
And we just want record ID. Talk me through it.
Click record ID.
Oh, that's it? But don't I need to say that that's what the...
No. And maybe this is why I had to put double quotes at the end, or that's completely wrong and maybe redundant, but I'm pretty sure it'll work, and we can test it out here. The only thing I would do is limit it to 1, so it's not likely to happen, but you'll only ever get 1 record back. And if you've done a few things with that Airtable base, you can select a view if you want, but we're not in that scenario.
Okay, let's see if this works. I'll be honest, I think might be an issue because it's going to test whether there's no field. We're not checking whether the field is equal to record ID. We're just saying record ID. So I'm with you, man. If this works, it's great. So I'm going to run once, and I'm going to process that existing record ID, right? Okay, so it didn't work.
That may have been something we had set up before.
No, it's got record. So it says the formula for filtering records is invalid. Unknown field names.
Right. So then in that case, you have to put the key and the value in there. So record ID equals the variable of record ID.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what that field is record ID, right? So let me copy paste that. So we're saying filter down to, so give me record ID equal this. Does that make sense?
That should be it. I was trying to take a look at my my base as well.
Let's give it another try.
Chrome stopped working. Listen
Process
for new,
existing?
yeah, and then, well, that's going back because there
I got
are a handful of them. Nice.
Let's see what that is. Here's how to automate your newsletter. Is that the right one? Yeah, totally. So it got the record. So for folks, I get a lot of questions around this. So let me just go back into here and explain this a little more. So that search record allows you to kind of input a field, and Airtable will evaluate whether this is true for each record in your table. So you can actually do and, ors, and anything that outputs a true or a false will be tested for each. So we're saying, okay, this field, record ID, is equal to the input of record ID, which comes from the webhook. This will always have a true value, right? What's cool about Integromat also, as a side note, is that you can then say okay, if there's an error here and you can't find a field, you can do error handling, which is something that Zapier doesn't do, which is pretty cool, but we're not going to get into that. Okay, now we have the values in Airtable. From Airtable, where do we kind of go from here?
So the next thing I'd like to do is actually just click that number 1 floating above Airtable, and then you can see everything just as you had confirmed
Right.
earlier. I want to get that HTML formatting. I want to get the first paragraph formatting taken care of right away, since it is, the bread and
Right.
butter of this newsletter that we're putting together. So
Okay,
I put
cool.
that through the Markdown formatter that we had seen earlier. So add another module, and you know, yeah, yeah,
Am
that's
I
it.
doing this? So I'm taking Airtable exports as Markdown, and we wanted to turn it to HTML. That way, if we've bolded anything in a rich text field, or we have some unique italic or links, we want to make sure
Exactly.
that that is translated into HTML. So our Markdown, when I'm clicking here, it gives me that access to like previous steps. So I want that. Where is it that we
First,
want that
first paragraph.
first paragraph? Boom.
Yeah. And a
Okay.
cool thing, if anyone is familiar with Integromat, they just released a search field at the top of this entire thing, which is a huge lifesaver. The further along these scenarios you go,
Oh,
the more
cool.
robust all of that data becomes. And this is long overdue.
Good. I'm happy that they pleased you. Um, as a reference to today's newsletter, it was okay. Whatever. I got it. Okay, so we're turning that into HTML. So this is
Yeah.
going to have an output. Okay, so now that it's in HTML, how do we put that into the newsletter?
That's probably the hardest part, because everything else is theoretically plug and play. One thing you can
We're
do
1 hour into
here,
the stream, and now you're like, "This is when
right?
it gets hard. Everything else
I
was
mean,
easy. This is
I
it."
I I, th- I don't know.
We
It's always hard to look back on this and be like, I spent 4 hours trying to figure out this one tiny problem, and then we try to pull it off here in like 5 minutes. But
we got this. We got. I believe in us. Let's do it.
I believe in us too. Let's I think you can run that Markdown module
Okay.
on its own. So
Oh, really? Okay.
right click, run, yeah, run this module only, and then it'll ask for the input. Just
Do I want to copy paste something, or I just want to say okay?
I thought you would have been able to select that blue button there.
Right.
It's not worth it. You can prove it out by taking that, copying it, and then pasting it in there, and you'll know that it does what it needs to do without
Yeah,
rerunning
there we
the
go.
whole
So it
thing.
gave it a little P,
Yeah.
and if it was a rich text field, so let's do this proper. Let's do this proper. If I put this into bold, the waistcoat is important. I'm gonna copy paste this. This should copy paste as Markdown, if I'm not mistaken. Let's do that again. See, this is
Yeah, a little buggy.
okay. Let's see if that outputs. It didn't. That's probably just because of my copy paste, and not
Likely.
because
Yeah.
of. Okay, cool. So let's act like I didn't do that. Nothing happened. Don't worry about it. Okay. Give us a thumbs up in the chat if you're still with us. I feel like we're going down a path here. We're moving it to Mailchimp. How do we do that?
So the first thing you want to do is create a campaign, and the way Mailchimp's API essentially is exposed here, it's step by step. So we're going to have 3 Mailchimp steps in here, and you'll just want to add that to the end. Yeah. Sometimes that
Mailchimp
search doesn't work, but here we go.
beta or legacy?
I'm always on the cutting edge, so let's go beta.
Okay.
And create a campaign. You had just hovered. It's up top.
Create a campaign.
That's
Cool.
it. So
Awesome.
just like we saw earlier in MailChimp, where you have all these fields that you want to fill out, we're going to do the same thing here. So because we pulled everything out of Airtable, we've got all of it available here. And
Oh, you call it name?
I think so. Yeah.
Campaign name?
Campaign name.
Boom. Subs. So I'm just kind of filling this out. Subject line. That is subject line. See, we know you built this base because you are much better at naming your variables and your fields than I am. Preview text obviously is called preview text. Nicely done.
I would lose it if I couldn't. Like, again, even before that search option showed up, it was just lots of scrolling through long lists.
Okay. All right.
A small note on that: if you don't have this email address set up in Mailchimp, I believe it throws an error. So
Yeah. I
make
set
sure
that up
the email
before.
you throw here, you add here is one that's already set up in Mailchimp.
Right. Good tip. So fill the body content, I imagine, by HTML format text.
That's it.
So this is essentially saying we're not going to take a template ID, right? So if we go here, I hope this is going to save. We can have each these templates have an ID, which we can say, okay, we're creating a new campaign with this template ID. But what we're saying is we're actually going to like give you the HTML. Right? And now I imagine like we need to put some HTML content in here.
That's it. And this is probably where we start playing around with that HTML a little bit more. And it's a good idea to do that in VS Code.
Okay.
Or we can do it in that sort of renderer that we brought up as well.
Yeah. I think let's do one, whatever you prefer. Okay, yeah.
The renderer is probably a good way to visualize it.
Cool. So how about we start with just this first paragraph? That feels like a good, solid first one.
Yeah.
Unless someone in the chat let us know what is that first piece. I know there was a question around images. Do you think images might be a better start? I will respect what people say in the chat this time.
Back to a democracy, huh?
A little bit. I'm a little worried about this, but I'm confident. What would you prefer? What is your vote?
Let's start with images.
Images.
And we can start at the top and then work our way down.
You're bold. You're very bold. Okay. Any votes? I'm not seeing. I think there's like a delay between the stream. Yeah. So sorry, folks, but let us know in the chat. I'm actually going to use this. I'm going to go get a glass of water and I'll be like 10 seconds right back.
It's another short-lived democracy. So, I mean, at this point, hopefully everyone's piecing things together here.
Okay. We only got your vote, so let's just do yours.
Let's do it. So on the left, I mean, you've got exactly what we want to talk about highlighted.
Sorry. SRC?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one right here. This we're going to make dynamic.
Yeah, so we checked that earlier. Let's go to the next one. Let's keep that static.
I don't see another source. Right? I can't find it, so I don't know if this doesn't search through it.
That add photo here with a shoe, that's something we can replace pretty easy.
Okay.
It's meant to be...
there's got to be a URL for it, right? So I got to find this in the HTML. So let me copy this over to VS Code because the search is probably a little better there.
Definitely.
So we're saying take this, try to find that. There we go. It's right here.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to change this image, this top image right here with something. What do we want to change it with?
So I'd say that header image.
Header image?
A good start. Yeah.
Okay. So we'd want to put in header image URL. How do I edit this so that Integromat understands to like put that field into this URL?
This is probably the most fun part because it saves so much time. If you head back to Integromat and open up the Mailchimp module. I knew we'd end up going French at some point. Scroll down to any of those fields because they're all kind of waiting to receive information from Airtable in this case.
Right. Click here.
Let's go. Yeah. And then click the image URL. So header image URL. And then this is the important part. It doesn't support cut. It only supports copy. So do a Control C or Command C,
Okay.
or select that whole sort of thing. Which
Yeah,
is
I did a
probably
Control
hard to
A,
see.
Control C.
Exactly. And now go back to VS Code. And while it's still highlighted, I'm hoping this works. Control V.
Boom.
There it is. So the way Integromat formats their variables is curly bracket, number, and that number is always visible. Period. Single quote, the name of the field, single quote,
This thing.
curly bracket. Yeah.
It's not a single. It's one of these bad boys.
Yes,
it's a slanted
shift,
quote.
right? Something.
Okay.
What do
I
we
don't
call
know.
that?
I don't know. I know it's in the top left of my keyboard.
Exactly.
I don't think it has a name.
But you don't even have to. You don't have to worry about that. You can just copy
cool.
and paste on the fly.
Okay. So now actually, I think this is actually a good test. So what we just did there is that we found the image we want to change, make dynamic, and that's the only edit we need to do in the HTML. So now I'm imagining like we got to take all this HTML and put it into that little thing to say like, this is what we want the newsletter to be.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. Let's go here. And then I'm going to remove this and just be like, I know you expected a single line text, but here's 400 lines of HTML. And my computer might
take a while. Yeah.
I had not thought of that.
This is the field that you try to change as little as possible. So getting into a text editor like VS Code is a good way to keep yourself sane.
Uh-oh, you're breaking my page.
Hope everyone
Let's
has
wait
time
on
to
it.
wait.
Let's wait on it. We got no choice. Boom.
There it is. So if you want to scroll through there slowly, you'll see that the variable's formatted correctly, and it'll be blue, and that'll be a good visual indication of
boom,
that variable being in the right spot, ready to go. So if you click OK, it'll save it. Quick note, I think Colleen's right to some point. There's like 2 different save points here. Let's click save on the bottom left. You don't want to lose this work.
See, I never get that. Just save it, like just auto save. It's 2021. We're in 21, like 2021. Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna hop on it.
I think things are likely to change for the better at Integromat, and hopefully that's at the top of the list. Okay. So the that module is just creating a campaign. So if we run this right now, which you can definitely do, what we'll see is it populates Mailchimp.
Do we want to run it, or do we want to, like, this feels like a good place. So essentially, if I run it, I should see the campaign here, right? Exactly. So I should see like, okay, let's run it. All right. I don't know if this will consider success, but I'm pretty bullish on it. So what we're hoping happens is that we have the template with this image as the header.
That's it.
Okay. Oh no, I got to turn it on. I didn't turn it on.
You can run it now. You can run the existing ones like we had done before.
Nah, it feels not as. Oh, is scheduling? What is no? Is scheduling the right thing?
No, that's good. So immediately is good. The webhook is able to immediately take action when it receives.
Oh, okay, got it.
A payload, or you can delay it.
Okay, boom.
So there that is.
And then I should see.
And in my experience, it takes a while. It might take a minute, maybe 2. We can check the logs here.
See, what time zone is this in?
Well, that's the other thing. I think it's CET.
Okay, this looked like it worked. Right? So let's go into here. Refresh.
This is the most nervous I've been.
Boom.
Nice. Now, if you on the drop down, you can open it up and there it is.
Nice. Can I see it? I think we got to see it. This is nerve-wracking. All right. Automate all the things. That is the image we have from here.
So that's our high watermark. Text,
that is the high watermark.
Everything else, I think it's dead simple.
We got success. We're doing a success.
Hopefully everyone's still there. It
I'm
is.
pretty stoked on this. That's dope. All right, because you're right. Because once you do the image, everything else just kind of falls into
It's
place.
probably,
Right?
yeah.
You just replace text.
And
things like
newsletters are
that, so.
becoming more and more visual. So, I mean, if you can get that out of the way, then you're off to the races. Text becomes fun. You can imagine, segmenting things in Airtable to have different audiences
Right.
catered to differently. And this is proving out the fact that you can have Airtable be that source of truth and that command center for your newsletter if you want.
Yeah. I think what I want to like just close on is I'm sure folks are like, okay, but can I update it as sent in Airtable? Can I, get a preview? You already have the view. So let's just kind of like iron this out and we'll end there. And if anyone is like, oh, I'd love you to do this, maybe like a text or a link, let us know in the chat and we'll adapt. But I do want to like close out this automation.
We can round it out quick. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
You're right. So we saw that it was just create the campaign, and now you can schedule that campaign. So typically what I do is I take, Wednesdays to create the content, get to a point where I'm comfortable with it, make sure it's in Airtable, sit on it for a day, maybe make edits, but I don't want to send it out until the following Monday. So This is where scheduling becomes important. Click right there.
You want to schedule it?
We can schedule it.
Okay.
Or we can send it right away.
No, it's cool. Schedule it. So schedule. So schedule. Is it just a search? Can I schedule? How do I schedule?
Send campaign should be
send.
Oh, maybe it's because we're in the beta.
Is there no? Can I switch to legacy?
Try that. Yeah, add another one. That doesn't really make a ton of sense, but
no, it's only giving me the new one. Oh, there we go. Legacy.
Yep.
No, this is only list stuff.
I'm sure send will do the trick either way. I've definitely scheduled it, so I know it exists.
You
can click that one.
This is driving me crazy. Beta. Okay, where do we see update, perform a campaign? Is it campaign action?
That's it. Yes.
Okay. So campaign ID.
There are a number of actions that you can do. So campaign ID, luckily that came back in the response from the previous module.
Right
module. And you can add that in quick. And then you can schedule, you can send.
Oh, do you make this dynamic as well?
Absolutely.
Of course you do.
This is a good one to again, keep you contained to Airtable. Whatever date you choose in Airtable.
Oh, campaign date right here.
You'll actually want to format.
Oh, you have it formatted?
But it's all done in Integromat. So earlier I mentioned you can manipulate things on the fly, and this is one way to do it. Oh, cool.
Okay. So how do we do that?
So if you click the gear in the top tab with that open.
Oh, got it.
And head over the calendar icon, actually. Format date in the bottom middle.
The bottom middle.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there are some examples.
So what format do I need?
I think it might be worth it to copy. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's in the other Integromat scenario. I had
cool. Yeah, let me go. Let me drop there. We prepare these streams. It's the podcast webhook. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, everyone's going to see. No, it's not that one.
Oh, here we go. Newsletter management. So schedule a campaign. And then here, calendar, So you have it set up in Airtable. You just have campaign date.
We can try that. I think the fact that CET is, I mean, it'll work. It'll be scheduled at some point in the future. It might not be relative to the East Coast or the West Coast time zone as we know it, but it should work. But it is worth some trial and error just to make sure that you get that right, because your Mailchimp account is going to be set to have its own time zone. So you'll need to make sure those match.
So there's a question around, Abyssale and Banner Bear, where you can create custom images. And so yeah, you can totally have those. So I think Abyssale has a Airtable app, if I'm not mistaken. And I know there's probably ways of just integrating with them. So as long as you can get the URL of the image into an Airtable field from whatever way you want, right? No matter how, like I've used Placid app in the past.
Yeah.
You can even use Page Designer. So all of my thumbnails are built with Page Designer. I literally take a screenshot and then just put it into attachment field, and then I get that URL. So whatever, as long as you get that URL, everything could be dynamic, right? Campaign date. Does that make sense, Albert? Hopefully that answers that question. So it doesn't matter where you create the asset, as long as it's either you have the URL of where it's hosted, or you host it in Airtable such that you can extract the URL and then put it into the HTML template.
That's it.
Cool. Okay, campaign date.
This should do it.
Okay, let's make sure this is in the future. Okay, let's give it like Monday. Let's save that. I gotta run it again, I guess.
Yeah, and if we're here to round it out, I think one good thing to do is send a test email if that interests you at all.
Right.
This way you actually know what your subscribers get when they do receive that email on Monday.
Is that a campaign action?
It will be another campaign action. I guess they've embedded everything in that one thing.
Right. That's okay.
So you need that campaign ID and
send
then
a test email. Oh, this is dope. I gotta say, this is almost making me regret that my newsletter is in review and not, so there is an API for review, but not for like the content. And Twitter owns it now, so I don't know if that'll ever happen, and just to be clear, I'm not moving my newsletter to Mailchimp.
I mean, the beauty of this is that it is interchangeable, right? I think Email Octopus would work well with this. There are a handful of email service providers that'll, do the same thing.
Okay. Cool.
So
okay.
With that, we'll save it again.
Oh, we want to update the field to say that it's been sent, right?
We can do that.
Yeah. We're blowing people's minds, which is, I would say, the high watermark. So I appreciate that. I'm happy. Yeah. Every week, every Wednesday. Come every Wednesday. We do this every week.
We got to find, maybe we can revisit the next chapter of this, which I'm going to be tight-lipped on for now. But as these final pieces come into play or put into place here, I'll share what my next idea is on how to extend this. It's all about those cliffhangers and that tension, that good tension to keep people hooked.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear it, though. Hopefully I'll be able to steal it and put it onto a stream.
The crux of it all is this. So we'll dive into this, probably the last module here. You want to go back to the record in Airtable where everything started and close the loop. You just want to let yourself know, the person at the helm of that Airtable, know that the campaign has gone through these steps. They've all succeeded. And the status of your campaign has gone from being pending to scheduled and ready to go whenever you've had it scheduled. So you go back to that record ID.
Right. So let me just walk folks through it. So I went to the base right here. I went to the table, which we've been working out of. I said, go to the record ID that triggered the webhook, right? And then it's going to pull up all of the fields, right? And so we're saying the status should be scheduled.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can write that in plain text.
Scheduled. Okay, and we don't want to change anything else.
Well,
so
actually,
yeah.
one thing. Let's go to the campaign URL field.
Yeah.
And let's add the short URL. So search short.
Let's just go URL maybe.
Yeah.
Long archive.
URL.
Long
Yeah.
short archive URL.
Whichever. I like the short one.
And campaign ID as well.
Exactly.
Cool. We just got a solo wow in the chat, which I understand. I also feel that way.
Gone from awesome to mind blowing to wow.
I gotta say, so Steven actually often shows me these automations. I gotta say, wow and awesome is usually what I say as well. So I totally know that feeling very well. Okay, campaign ID. Okay, cool. Okay, this feels good, right?
Sometimes, yeah, this feels good. I do remember. Tab to the next one so we can see the one that's up and running. AATT, the other scenario there.
Right.
Because there's an error handler. And this is important because Mailchimp has tiers. So you're going to be on a free tier to start. And you can only send to 2,000 subscribers, I believe. And you can only send a certain amount of messages a day. So if you, let's say, do all this on the day that you already have a campaign being sent, you might hit that limit and it'll error out here. So what you want to do is simple, and they also say you can only send a certain number of test emails in a given 24 hours. I found that out the hard way when I was testing it and testing it and testing it. So this is your out. This is where you can say, ignore any error that comes back in that second to last step. Let it do what it's meant to do, which is go back to Airtable and update everything there.
Okay. So it's just not going to send the test email, but it'll still do what you want it to do. So
exactly.
We're going to create another. Like, how do I just do this?
I'm going to leave you to it.
Oh, shit.
really earn the love from Integromat. It's a right click, which again, I'll agree is not totally intuitive, but on the module itself. Delete that one.
Wait, what? Is this no good?
It's no good.
Why is this no good?
It's
this one.
Yeah, and then add error handler.
Got it.
And then it's resume. Exactly. That's it.
Okay, so
Save this twice. Save this 3 times as many times as you're comfortable.
Okay. All right. Let's do this. So what we're hoping is that we're going to trigger a webhook. It's going to get the field. It's going to get that markdown. We're only sending the image, but we can send
anything,
everything eventually, right? We'll leave that up to the reader, right? As a exercise on their own time. Schedule the newsletter, send the test thing to make sure that it works, and then update. And then if there's an error, it'll resume. Okay. I'm bullish on this. Okay, let's move this back. So confirmed. We're good to go.
Yep. Is it on? Right. Is the Integromat scenario on?
I will add a little add. So imagine you want to put in like a test of whether you filled out every field. You can actually put that logic into the button. I won't do that, but you can say if subject line, preview text, header image, like a long if, and only trigger the webhook in the case where all of that is true. So we're not going to do that, but
I'm
so it's like
that next. Yeah, you told me that today, right? Like I just found out about it, and it would be a lifesaver.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this. Schedule. Boom. Accepted. That's the first step one. Okay, so let's go back. We should have history here.
Oh,
it errored.
Let's figure out what that is.
Okay, so perform a campaign action. Cannot be scheduled.
Oh.
That's probably just because I don't have like a Mailchimp, right? So let's just delete that step. I don't need it to be scheduled. Yeah. So just because I know that this is probably just like a problem with my Mailchimp thing and that like date. Actually, let's see if we can put it into the future. That might be it, actually. No, we did have it in the future.
Let's go far in the future.
No, it might be just because I can't schedule multiple campaigns. Let's try it again.
You got to turn it on.
Did I not turn it on?
It turned off after the error, which is another thing I'm sure that got you to
Let's try that again
at first. There's there's probably a queue. So head back to the diagram. Yeah. Show queue.
Okay. I see. So can I just
delete them all?
Okay. So if it errors once, every subsequent one becomes, so you could, Colleen has a good question. Like we could use the scheduler, like you could halt you can just say run this at the time that was inputted by Airtable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so we've deleted it. Do we want to run it again? Let me go back into... I think I did. Let me try that again. Where's that scenario? Is this it? Yeah, this is the one that errored. Okay. And then I need to save, I imagine.
Top right, turn that on.
Top right.
So you're starting to see the weak points of their UI, because those things didn't update in real time. But
okay, let's remove this one. Let's just remove the scheduler.
Yeah, we'll see the test email. It should close that loop and get the point.
It might be because I have two campaigns with the same name as well, because I already have one in here. So let me delete this campaign.
And like I said earlier, there's been a lot of changes with Mailchimp, so it's possible that you're on a newer plan and they don't allow for scheduling, which
that's a good point.
Yeah, they wouldn't expose that in the API, but Colleen's right. The Integromat solution would stand in.
Okay, let's go into my campaigns and let's delete the one we just created. That way we won't have like two campaigns with the exact same name or multiple. Oh, so it still created the campaigns.
The drafts are there, yeah, which is because everything before that failure in Integromat still did what it needed to do.
Right.
We're here for the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. We got to get that confetti. Boom. Okay, let's try that one more time here. All right. So here, to get it, turn it on. It's on. Boom. Schedule. Boom. Let's go here. Let's go into history. Oh shit, I forgot to save the changes. Damn it. I gotta, so it probably created another campaign. Man, this is really frustrating.
I bet you there's a log, something in the queue.
Man.
Which you don't see until you back into, and maybe even refresh, who knows?
No, see, it doesn't. Okay, it's here. So I gotta go back here.
It's on.
Okay, did it create it? No, I didn't create it. Okay, so we ran it. We saved it.
I promise everyone on the stream watching right now, it's worth getting past these hiccups and these small challenges.
It's okay. It's okay. This is part of sweating on the stream. It's part of the allure.
Is it still cold where you are right now?
It definitely feels warmer. Okay, so let's go. See, it's still erroring somewhere. So let's go into it. Let's go into. How do I even know if it's erroring?
Yeah, you got it. That's so weird. Do you have it open in another tab?
Oh, I do have it open. That's why. Okay. So we got to do that one more time, folks, for the record. Okay, so go here, save. And if I leave, now it's actually saved.
That's it. Yeah.
And let's go ahead and run that one more time. No promises on this one. There we go.
Refresh on the far right there.
Oh, did it turn off? See, this does not look like the one it should be running. It should be running this. This is weird.
I'm starting to think, and we'll edit this out later, right?
Yes.
I'm starting to think we changed the scenario that we wanted to use as a point of reference.
Oh, are we using the one? Oh, the one we had prepared before.
I believe so.
Let me check. It's got your account in it.
And it would simply be a different, it'll be a different webhook.
No, this is mine. This is mine.
Oh, okay.
You can see.
Okay.
No, we're good. AATT. Nice. So this is the frustrating part I gotta say about Integromat is that in the crux of it, like I have no idea what is going on. And it drives me crazy.
It should show up in that log, in that history view. Huh? I don't get it. It should be hitting that webhook.
Okay, let's give it one more try. Let me just make sure I've got the right webhook here. Okay, the right BH8Z. No, it's not the right webhook. You're right. That is the issue. All right, folks.
Got that mixed up.
There's probably my fault somewhere here.
While you're doing that, can this web workflow be done with Zapier or N8N?
Oh yeah, N8N is like a new open source. Yeah, like you can do. I think you could do this with Zapier. I don't see why you wouldn't, right? So you essentially have the webhook. You find the record in Airtable. They have a markdown functionality. Mailchimp probably has just as deep integrations. They might not have the HTML input, but I'm sure they do. Otherwise, it's available in their API, so you can totally do this. And then update the record. So all of this can be done in Zapier as well. So here we go. We had the wrong scenario. So that's on me. I'm going to delete this one. And I'm going to save. Right? And now...
Turn it on.
Turn it... Right. Turn it... Okay. Let's run it. I appreciate everyone's patience, by the way. Thank you. Okay. Oh, man. This is driving me nuts. Okay, there's an error, though. We got the error. Let's figure out this error. See, it's still running that old...
Because it hadn't saved.
This is driving me crazy. This is enough to... Okay.
It's saved now. And it says success.
Oh, there we go. Boom. Okay, so it did work. Because it went through the queue.
You should have a test email in your inbox. And I think that will be a measure of success here.
Is it here? No. There we go.
Yes. We did it.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone's patience. We did it. We learned about the frustrating parts of Integromat as well. I think this is worth
Which is pretty valuable in itself, right? How do you feel?
All right. I feel equal parts excited that we got somewhere, but also I feel like the journey was a fun one. So I appreciate you coming on.
I love it. I told you I'd be up for a long one, and here we are. So at the end of the day, I think the concepts are whatever is what's important here, and we got that point across.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks so much for everyone for joining. Yeah, this is super fun because I think I can't wait to see what people build on top of this. Like this essentially lets you kind of use Mailchimp for the sending part, which is really, really good at, and just use the HTML part to actually input whatever you want, and not have to worry about having to use that editor and that edit things there, which is a real pain.
Yeah.
And almost abstracting Mailchimp to like a SendGrid, right? And I know that SendGrid could also do this, right? So there's a lot of tools out there where you can just input the HTML and send out the newsletter. So what I hope is people build cool stuff on top of this. Let us know if you do build something, and I can't wait to see what you all build. And Albert, if you ever want to be able to use that success action, let me know. I can make you a moderator, and you could be the one who writes success in the chat. Next time we'll have you do it. So yeah, we'll be back next week with how to edit videos in Airtable. So I actually manage my whole stream out of Airtable, and I'll be on with Jeff Shalito, if I'm not mistaken, with how to manage your content, but also edit videos out of Airtable. So very similar to this. How do you create a central source of truth and really just like your hub out of Airtable? How was it?
Awesome.
How warm is it where you are?
I'm sweating. I'll tell you that. But it's I'm glad we got there. And everything, all those trials and tribulations, you're bound to come up against them on your own. So I'm glad we demonstrated that too.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you again for coming, Stephen. It means a lot. And I can't wait to do another stream where I steal the automations you show me. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'll see y'all next week. You know where to find me. Have a good one. Bye, y'all.